Okay, so what we have here is the Victa Exmark, a 36-inch walk-behind pedestrian mower. This thing is in quite a state. Basically, from what I've been told by the previous owner, it's been left outside for many years, probably at least 10. It's completely seized. Everything about it is seized except for the engine, which is good. So yeah, it's basically stuck in gear. None of the levers work. The throttle doesn't work. The whole machine obviously doesn't start. So the engine doesn't run. But yeah, like I say, the good thing is the engine, at least it doesn't appear to be. The engine does not appear to be seized, which is a bonus. So just to give you an idea, I've already taken this guard off before. There's normally a belt that runs around here. This is the drive pulley on the wheel, which is seized. This wheel is completely seized on. These are all seized, obviously, but these idler pulleys here, that pulley there is actually rotted away. That is pretty bad. I've never seen anything so bad that a pulley is actually fallen to pieces. Well, I was expecting to change them anyway, so it doesn't bother me that it's rusty. It's just, in a way, amusing that it is so bad. This is why I should keep the camera rolling. I just pulled up on the pulley and that just broke clean off. Okay, well that's obviously removed the tension from the belt, and the belt is actually corroded deep into the pulley. I'm trying to get a closer up view for you, but I think whichever way I do this, my hand is going to keep getting in the way. But you can see how it's sort of welded itself in there with the rust. The belt is off and the wheel is still frozen solid. The engine was manufactured on the 31st of January 1990, so the machine is probably, well, either 1990 or maybe 91 possibly. So I think, although the wheels are totally seized, I prefer to start with the engine, because then even if the rest of the machine isn't worth working on, if I can get the engine running, I then have a good engine for something else. But my plan is to restore this machine, even though it is quite a challenge, and getting some of the parts might be quite tricky. Okay, so to begin with, we'll just check the oil. The oil filter seems to be perforated. It's actually leaking out the front. That's how rotten it is. Right, so it's showing below minimum, but it is actually registering, which is something. It's registering below minimum, so I think it has just leaked out of the oil filter. So it feels seized, but I think that's because the whole drive system is seized and the belt is still connected. It's always engaged. So if I take the belt off, then hopefully that will allow me to pull the engine over. Because at the moment the engine just feels seized completely. Now I think once upon a time this nut here was the tensioner for the belt underneath. But I doubt it's going to do anything because it's actually totally seized. The slider underneath is seized as well. I think what's probably happened here is the nuts, which are actually originally within the rubber twist caps, have just rusted onto the thread, and now these are just spinning on the nut. So probably prying them off would be the best way. I didn't want to break them, but I can't really see an alternative. I think this is going to be the trend with this machine. Everything's going to be seized and everything's going to need to be cut off, which is not my approach, but there's not usually an alternative. Yep, just as I thought. The nut's seized onto there, so the rubber just spins around the nut. Right, I might be able to put it back in again now, actually. If I can unseize it now, I might be able to put it back into the rubber. There's not too much life in here, which is good. There is a bit, but the air filter's done a fairly good job at keeping it clean in the intake, which is a good thing. So I think the next thing to do is to take the top engine cover or top engine cowling off, just to inspect it and make sure it's all clean in there. I think for now we'll just put this back on, just to prevent anything else going in there. Should be fine, and then yeah, we'll take this cover off. So yeah, this is the recoil version. Obviously there's no electric start. Now looking at this, that is going to pull the terminal off. So as you can see here, as you would expect, the coil is really rusty, and the terminal was well, paper thin. So the moment before I even attempted to remove the terminal, you could see it was going to snap off, and it did do so. I was trying to find a good used coil, otherwise I'll have to get another one. that's the engine back together. I've also put just a cheap coil in there just to give it a go. What I'm going to do now is actually drain the old fuel out of the tank. Now when I got to it, the fuel tap was off, so it means that there is a possibility that horrible off fuel hasn't made it into the carburetor, but honestly, the carburetor is not going to be good. I'm not expecting it to work. It's going to need a total rebuild, possibly even replacement, depending on how bad it is. It doesn't look good from the outside, so I don't know, we're going to have to wait and see. But my next plan is to basically just remove any fuel source, probably take the spark plug out, and then see if we have spark getting from the coil obviously to the spark tester, or the spark plug itself. Looks like water. Yeah, don't think that's fuel. Yeah, it smells like, well, it smells like nothing. Yeah, a bit of a hint of off fuel coming through now, I can smell. Pretty sure it's mostly water though. You can tell by the way it flows. So that could be in the carburetor. Like I say, the tap was off though. Okay, so I've just fitted a new pull cord, as you can see, but the feeling I'm getting from this engine is it just does not have enough compression. And I thought that the moment I first pulled it over. It just seems far too easy. So the first step is going to be to take the valve cover off and go from there really. I don't know how well you can see this, but the exhaust valve, the top one, is actually stuck all the way in. You can see the spring here is pushing the valve retainer out, but this one, the spring is fully compressed. So that's the reason why there's no compression. It's most likely been caused by, well, lack of use, but also not helped one bit by being left outside. Clearly it's very stuck. I think the best method to begin with is to just soak it in WD-40. It's been soaking for a few hours now. I keep applying some WD-40 every now and then. So I think it's probably time just to give it a quick tap with this nylon hammer. It does seem a bit strange hitting it with a hammer, but there's not really many other alternatives. So just very gently. There we go. Seems to have got it. Because what happens is it just rust welds in the position it was stopped in. So you can see the spring has returned. So what I'm going to do is actually remove the valve altogether, get it all cleaned up, and well, this whole head needs to be cleaned up quite a bit. So I'm going to try and do a fairly thorough job of it. You can see some of these carbon deposits. It's very mucky in here. So yeah, it just needs to be really well cleaned out. Okay, so time to look at the parts that have been in the MC51 solution. I've actually had really good results with that product. That was very rusty before. The exhaust manifold. I've got this piece as well for the side of the engine. This piece goes over the exhaust manifold. And then I have a few bolts as well. Which have all come out very good. So yeah, I actually do soak parts for far longer than they actually recommend. These have been in there for about 3 weeks, and I've had good results. I think they only recommend about a day or something, but that's probably just to cover themselves, because it can start to discolour the metal. That's why it's best to clean it off straight away. You can see how good the condition of this is really. It just rusted. So what I'm going to do with it now is just give it a good coat of heat-proof paint. You don't even see it, but at least you know then it's going to protect it a bit. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is start to strip down the head. This is going to be a relatively straightforward process. Most important thing is, of course, making sure everything's separate. Intake and exhaust, individual containers. I'm going to start with the intake and then keep that all separated first of all. Just loosen both of those off, but yeah, we're going to focus on the intake primarily. So what I need to do here is use this nut as a retainer, as a holder for the valve spring compressor. So it essentially goes underneath there, and that'll allow me to compress the spring, and with a bit of luck I'll be able to remove these collets, these valve retainers, these valve spring retainers. Would appear that they have been in there for some time. Just crossing over to the exhaust valve here. This is actually the sound of the valve stem rubbing, so I'm not going to do it too much. That is the one that was jammed. And they always jam in the open, well, they tend to jam in the open position. So
it's usually caused by just lack of use, but of course lack of use and being left outside is almost inevitable that this is going to happen. So what we have is the other valve spring retainer, just there. We'll keep that safe. Again, valve spring, valve retaining cap, the spring itself, and in here we have the old valve seal, which will be replaced. So I'm going to do the same thing now for the exhaust, and I'm expecting this one to be just the same, just as stuck. I actually did persuade the first one, the intake, with my other valve spring compressor. It's a bit awkward to get in with this one though, you can't really do it, which is why they have recommended using this method. But yeah, it just takes a bit of work, a bit of time to free them off if they have got a bit stuck in there. Right, bit of progress. Yep, that valve does not want to move. I was expecting worse. Before I rebuild it, just need to clean it up a bit. Okay, so after some extensive cleaning, this is what it now looks like. It probably could still do with a bit more cleaning, and I need to treat the rust on here. But it is much cleaner than it was before, and more importantly, the valves both sit in here as they should do. So no more jamming on the exhaust valve. This valve doesn't really want to work because of the very slight pitting in the top of it. There are other methods. Some people recommend putting a drill on the other side of it, but I don't really like the idea of that. I prefer this to be a more methodical and accurate way. It needs more. I'll keep going with that until it's a good, even, clean seat. Now this is the exhaust valve, which you'd expect to be worse, but actually it is far better than the intake valve was. And yeah, the seat is proving to be much easier to do as well, because it doesn't have the pitting on the top, so the suction pad actually does work, which is good. I've just been told by Briggs & Stratton that the parts which I ordered for this are going to be another month, so I'm going to have to move on to something else. I think I'll remove the engine from the mower, and then we'll take a look inside the carburetor to see if it's actually worth repairing it. Otherwise I'll have to find a good used one.
So I've got the flywheel all cleaned up, and the way I did this is actually just by soaking it in vinegar. I soaked it in vinegar for a few days, and it's now brought it back to this bare metal. The only thing about this is it will rust again very quickly. In fact, when you take it out of vinegar, it can very quickly flash rust. So I think I'm just going to give it a very quick coat of paint. Not too much though. Don't want to really paint the flywheel too much at all. Just really to protect it.
Okay, so before I do conclude this episode, I just want to take a look inside the carburetor to see how bad it actually is. I'm really not expecting it to be good. I think if I remove this bowl, I'm just going to be confronted with a load of oxidised aluminium. That's not going to work. Okay, and yeah, I've checked the price of these new. I don't really want to buy one new, but they are £180 roughly. In the UK, there's not many parts available for this particular engine anymore. But hopefully, my plan is to just get this one going. But we'll just have to see what the next 5 seconds holds for us. Wow, that's pretty good. I was expecting it to be much worse. It looks to be very gummed up. But no, I was actually expecting it to be full of water and all oxidised or rusty. It's not great in here, but no, I think it actually does have potential. Yeah, it actually looks pretty good. So yes, I'm going to keep it nice and clean. That'll be the next episode, cleaning the carburetor and hopefully getting the engine running. Now I need to just establish what parts I need for that. I'll do that off screen. And then the next episode I should be starting off with the rebuild of this. I'll have to get it all nicely cleaned up. It is possible to do it, actually, to make sure I have all the parts available. Like I said, the parts in the UK for this particular engine are not really available. I've already bought a few parts for this engine and they all came from the USA, so yeah, it is not the fastest way of doing an engine, buying the parts as you go, but I can't really buy all the parts in the off chance that it would be worth doing. So yeah, that should be good, hopefully. And for anybody who's thinking, why are you doing all this work without even making sure the mower is going to work? Well, that's why I started with the engine, because the engine can be used on other applications. This mower is bad, especially the seized wheels actually seized onto the axle, really bad. So this is no doubt a massive project. It really doesn't look that bad, but it really is, which it makes it quite hard for me to actually convey over how bad it actually is, because cosmetically it could be much worse, but mechanically it's pretty rubbish. So yeah, that's why I'm starting with the engine. Nothing's being wasted here. I haven't really spent anything on it anyway yet, and at the end of the day, hopefully I'm going to have a fairly good engine out of it. So I can't see any reason why the engine won't run, and as you can see, it really is looking cleaner. I would like to get rid of the rust as well. I can treat the rust, so there's more things that need to be done here. I'm definitely not finished with the cleaning of the engine, but I'm getting there slowly, so one step at a time. And finally, like I say, I don't know if this will ever be finished just because of the severe rust, but I do have a few ideas of how to get past the rust, which I'll reveal in future videos. But I think that is it for episode 1. Please do subscribe, like the video, share, do all those things, and I'd greatly appreciate it. There we go. We are progressing.